So I want to start by thanking Kathy for inviting me this morning to preach here at Mill Creek. When I accepted, I couldn't remember when I'd preached here before, but then I looked at my records, and I've been here 9 times before, more than probably any other congregation since I served a church in Florida. Well, the last time was a year ago. So you'll be the judge today as to whether I get invited back or not. The 4th of July weekend was approaching, and Miss Pelham, the nursery school teacher, took the opportunity to tell her class about patriotism. We live in a great country, she announced. One of the things we should be happy is that in this country, we are free. Well, Trevor, who was a little boy in her class, came walking up to her from the back of the room. He stood with his hands on his hips, and he says, "I'm not free, I'm for." In Thomas Jefferson's first inaugural address, he said these words: "Equal and exact justice to all of whatever state or persuasion, religious or political, peace, commerce, and honest friendship with all nations, entangling alliances with none, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, and freedom of person." These principles form the bright constellation which has gone before us and guided our steps through an age of revolution and reformation. The wisdom of our sages and the blood of our heroes have been devoted to their attainment. They should be the creed of our political faith, the text of civil instruction, the touchstone by which to try the services of those we trust. And should we wander from them in moments of error or alarm, let us hasten to retrace our steps and to regain the road which alone leads to peace, liberty, and safety. I think Jefferson would be weeping right now if he could see America today. The recent Supreme Court decisions have taken away liberty for our LGBTQ plus neighbors. Books are being banned by opponents to keep ideas out of impressionable minds. Women in many parts of this country have lost bodily autonomy to decide for themselves their reproductive health. Jefferson was stating the touchstones of American democracy. These words, spoken by a Unitarian president over 200 years ago, though, sound very similar to statements in our Unitarian Universalist Statement of Purposes, which we agreed on by delegates to the General Assembly back in 1985. The current statement echoes words used by Unitarian and Universalist bodies for 200 years. We are now in a discussion of a new statement of who we are as a people of faith, and this will be voted on a second time this coming General Assembly, which will be all virtual. So you can be sitting in your living room participating. Well, look at the words that are found in our gray hymnal, which we just used. Just past the preface, we covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Justice and equity and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. A free and responsible search for truth and meaning. The right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. Move some of this stuff out of the way here. So here's what we have a comparison to what Jefferson said. Jefferson said equal and exact justice for all. We say justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Jefferson said peace, commerce, and honest friendship with all nations. We said the goal of world community. Jefferson said freedom of religion. We say a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Jefferson said freedom of person. We say the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Now, I don't think it's a coincidence that our current principles resonate so strongly with the words of Jefferson and others who were in the American Revolution and the Declaration of Independence that we celebrated for the 247th time as a nation last Tuesday. Unitarians and Universalists were prominent in the creation of this country, offering up signers of the Declaration of Independence, as well as many others who have pledged their lives and treasures to secure the liberty that we enjoy today. And when this country was again threatened with civil war over slavery and oppression of people of color, Unitarians and Universalists worked to prevent the sundering of those bonds between states and to go ahead and liberate those who were enslaved. Reverend Thomas Starr King worked himself to death, keeping California as part of the Union. Without his work, it might have gone to the Confederacy. Up until recently, his statue resided in Statuary Hall in Congress as one of two from California. He is credited as single-handedly being responsible for keeping it in the Union. Now, Reverend King was both a Unitarian and a Universalist, when it was very rare to adhere to both parts of our modern faith. He was one of the first Unitarian Universalists. Now, sadly to say, his statue was replaced by President Ronald Reagan. I think that was a bad mistake, but, you know, I wasn't in charge. Theodore Parker, another Unitarian minister, was the inspiration for Abraham Lincoln's famous line, "Government of the people, by the people, for the people," which he used in the Gettysburg Address in 1863. Well, during the early months of the American Civil War, Lincoln's law partner, William Herndon, gave the president a book of Parker's sermons and speeches. In it, it included a sermon titled, "The Effect of Slavery on the American People," which Parker delivered at the Music Hall in Boston in Massachusetts on July the 4th, 1858. So 2 years before the Civil War broke out. But in that sermon, Parker said, democracy is direct self-government over all the people, for all the people, by all the people. According to Herndon, Lincoln marked those words in his copy before he wrote the Gettysburg Address. So our liberal and progressive faith has coursed through American history and shaped its trajectory in many areas. Clara Barton was a Universalist who created the modern American Red Cross that continues to help in disasters and calamities anywhere in our country. In a 1905 letter to a friend, she wrote this, Your belief that I am a universalist is as correct as your greater belief that you are one yourself, a belief in which all who are privileged to possess it rejoice. In my case, it was a great gift. Like St. Paul, I was born free and saved the pain of reaching it through years of struggle and doubt. My father was a leader in the building of the church in which Hosea Ballou preached his first dedication sermon. Your historic records will show that the old Huguenot town of Oxford, Massachusetts, erected one, if not the first, Universalist church in America. In this town I was born. In this church I was reared. In all its reconstructions and remodeling, I have taken a part. And I look anxiously for the time in the near future when the busy world will let me once more become a living part of its people, praising God for the advance in the liberal faith of the religions of the world today, so largely due to the teachings of this belief. Her faith infused her life and her actions. Another person that I want to lift up is Dorothea Dix. Dorothea Dix took her Unitarian faith into social reformation. As early as 1841, she was working to improve the lives of the mentally ill. Her tireless work over the next decades reformed mental health in this country. Hospitals and asylums were constructed after she lobbied legislators and governments for humane treatment of those suffering mental illnesses. The American National Biography online described her work during the Civil War. In 1861, the outbreak of the Civil War temporarily suspended Dix's advocacy for the mentally ill. On 10th of June, 1861, she was appointed superintendent of U.S. Army nurses. For the next few years, Dix trained approximately 180 young women, including Louisa May Alcott, for medical duty during the war. One doctor testified to Dix's dedication during this period by writing that she was a very retiring, sensitive woman, yet brave and bold as a lion to do battle for the right and for justice. She was very unpopular in the war with surgeons, nurses, and any others who failed to do their whole duty. Her faith gave her the strength to work for justice. So can you see our religious values that are represented in this sample of Unitarian and Universalists who gave their lives to resist oppression of others? Our Unitarian forebears believed that they were inspired by God to do good works as a part of our salvation. Our Universalist ancestors believed that a loving God would welcome all into heaven, and God's love for humanity inspired them to work for causes such as peace, anti-slavery, and care for the poor and downtrodden. Our religious values have permeated modern commerce. Have you ever bought anything from Newman's Own? Show of hands. Okay. Did you know that Paul Newman attended the Westport, Connecticut Unitarian Church with his wife, Joanne Woodward, who was a member? His children attended the religious education program. Paul started Newman's Own company in 1982 with his recipe for salad dressing. From the very beginning, his company has given away all after-tax profits to charity. Paul said, "Let's give it all away to those who need it," without ever taking any personal compensation. Paul shared his good fortune with others. It was a unique concept at the time, giving away all after-tax profits, but he believed that helping others was the right thing to do. And this came from his affiliation with our Unitarian Universalist faith. To date, the company has given away over $600 million to worthy causes. Other companies now follow his example. Jack Mendelson, a 20th century Unitarian Universalist minister, stated that we faith together as a way of relating to self, to others, and to the sources of our being, value, and meaning. We faith a church that is not merely a structure, but a center of sanity and inspiration in a deranged world. That is not merely a place of private cultivation and retreat, but a temple for renewing and revitalizing our beleaguered values that stands as a symbol of humans aspiring together, tracking truth together, and demanding social justice together, that has within it the exuberance of play, the blessings of shared worship, a symmetry with life's rhythms, a church resonant with silence, song, critical inquiry, and social action. So 247 years ago, leaders of the rebellion against Great Britain proclaimed, "We hold these truths self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Equality has been a cornerstone of our faith and in this country from the beginning. First, we freed the slaves. We gave women the vote and overcame so much other oppression. Now we have LGBTQ+ people able to enjoy all the rights of marriage, serving in the military, and being elected to office. But is this country perfect? No, not by a long shot. There is so much more that is yet to be done. The recent opinions from Justice Clarence Thomas would strip these rights away, and there may yet be a push to overcome the previous decision that granted those rights. We must stay vigilant to oppose those who would deny others of their rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Unitarian Universalism still has a role to play in shaping this country's future. Voting rights, women's rights, LGBTQ+ rights are all being challenged in this hyper-partisan country of ours. We must continue the struggle for a more perfect union. We cannot stand idly by in the face of this contest for our future as a country. Our faith will guide us in our work for justice for all. This is a faith that permeates the American experience. Our religious values are represented in the striving for equality for all so as to create a more perfect union, just like the preamble of the United States Constitution states. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. I wish our current Supreme Court would follow those dictates. I hope that you will pause and reflect on America's quintessential faith that is our Unitarian Universalist heritage. Our ancestors created in creating America far beyond what our small membership would be expected to do. Now it's our time to act to keep our country strong and free. So let us celebrate the faith journey that has helped make America what she is today. She is still a strong, vibrant country that is ever evolving in her understanding of freedom and responsibility to each other and to the world. So may the holy, by whatever name, bless America from sea to shining sea as a beacon of hope in these very uncertain times. Amen.